demand for this analysis from a local YouthMappers chapter. The final objective of this project was to develop a method using existing OpenStreetMap data to design mapping campaigns to better prepare vulnerable areas digitally for flooding events. The 4 steps to identify these vulnerable areas were to query for unmapped villages, find unmapped areas, and get a surface water raster third, and finally overlay that surface water raster on top of unmapped areas. So first, in order to query for unmapped areas in Panama, I used OpenStreetMap data and Overpass Turbo to query for unmapped villages in QGIS. So in order to figure out which villages were unmapped, I developed like a query from an idea that Pascal Nice had on one of his blogs to find unmapped areas on the whole planet. So I got ideas from that to first query all villages in the search area, in this case, Panama. So Panama places tagged with place equals village. And then next I added a buffer for villages with roads tagged as highway equals service, highway equals unclassified, or highway equals residential within 700 meters of those villages. The final step to finding these was to subtract that list of villages with roads within 700 meters from the total amount of villages and return all remaining villages. So these are villages that do not have a road within 700 meters that are a service road, unclassified road, or residential road. And this is what that looked like. So on the left, you can see the quick OSM plugin that I used to get to Overpass Turbo from QGIS. And then on the right, this is the output of a point layer on top of the Panama shapefile, which is outputted as a temporary layer that can either be saved permanently or just used to do calculations. The next step was to turn this point layer into an area layer. So I used the Count Points in Polygons tool to identify municipalities with unmapped villages in them. I didn't use a weighting scheme here, so all of these municipalities you see either have 1 or more unmapped villages in them. And these areas were then to be used to design mapping campaigns, such as these areas to be loaded into something such as Hot Tasking Manager. The next step was to develop a surface water raster. So I used Google Earth Engine to analyze Panama for surface water, which I actually used code developed by my mentor, Kevin, and I edited it for Panama to get this surface water raster using Landsat 8 and Sentinel-2 imagery. The great thing about this Google Earth Engine raster is that it's loaded straight to your Google Drive and can be downloaded right into QGIS. So it was pretty much worry-free. The final step was to overlay this raster on top of the unmapped areas, where I was prioritizing areas with surface water that were also unmapped. So here you can see on the left, that is Tole Municipality in Panama, and on the right, Sona Municipality in Panama, which are both unmapped and contain surface water. The final output was to have 2 to 3 priority areas that I selected. The first being Chepigana, Panama Municipality, which, as you can see outlined in green, is an unmapped municipality, and it has surface water. The second area that I decided was a priority was Sona Municipality, which is also unmapped and has surface water. And the third and final priority area that I decided on was Tole, Panama Municipality, which has surface water and is also unmapped. After performing this analysis and getting those priority areas, I created a documentation. So I compiled a detailed guide for running the analysis. If you are not familiar with this software and you want to find a flood vulnerable area, I provided all the necessary code, links, and steps for repeating this process in a detailed step-by-step guide that goes as far to say how to download QGIS onto your computer or to create Google Earth Engine account, which needs to be approved, all the way to developing the raster data file and then performing the analysis yourself. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Noelle. What a great presentation and project. And thank you, Kevin, for mentoring Noelle. Would any GeoCenter folks like to ask questions?
Just real quick, Adele.
Yes, go ahead.
Noelle, were you surprised at the, I guess the amount of unmapped areas in Panama? I would have thought it would have been really comprehensive already. What was your perception relative after the project relative to going into it?
So I was a little bit surprised, but I mean, I did expect there to be a bit of unmapped areas there because there's a lot of like forest. So I'm not sure if those unmapped areas, if a good portion of them are actually not like inhabited by a lot of people, that it is known or something, but that's definitely something that I'd like to figure out more because I'm not sure. I didn't look into that, but I was a little bit surprised by how much was unmapped.
Thanks, and really good presentation.
Thank you.
Just
go ahead.
Sorry, just real quick. Great presentation. I was just curious in terms of how you went about pulling out surface water using Landsat and Sentinel in terms of like what bands or what water indices.
So that's actually not something that I spent most of my time doing. So I used Kevin's code from Google Earth Engine. So he definitely knows a lot more about that. I just basically edited it for Panama and ran it, saw the surface water, and used that raster. So I'm not the expert on that part.
Okay, no problem. Thanks.
Any other questions for Noelle? Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna shake the order up a little bit so that Chad can catch Michael's presentation before Chad signs off. So next we're going to be hearing from Michael, who will be talking about mapping trash features on OpenStreetMap. And thank you to Evelyn at the GeoCenter for mentoring Michael as well as Chad. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. I'm going to present, share my screen. Okay. Does everyone see the PowerPoint?
Still loading for me. There we go.
Okay. Okay, it's all good?
Yep.
Okay, so my name is Michael Cole, and my project was Operation One Man's Trash for my YouthMappers final project, and honorable mention to Chad Belvins and Evelyn Michael. Without these two, I wouldn't know where to start or really redefine my tasks for this project. So without further ado, I'll get started. A basic introduction to this is YouthMappers have been working in the waste management domain, helping identify unidentified trash sites. For me, because at the time of my research and field work, I was at State College. So a lot of this information, all of this information is going to be based in University Park, PA. For the project, I was tasked with creating appropriate tags for unmarked amenities and trash sites at University Park, and also researching the trash life cycle at Penn State. Developing specific tags and locations will help contribute to the waste management data in OpenStreetMap. So in my field of research, in my field study, I went around campus and into buildings, offices, not dorms, but I found that the Mobius station was the main source of waste management for University Park. And as you can see, since 2014, this was sort of initiated to compost and expand recycling to help the university divert 85% of its solid waste from Center County landfills, and to help reuse a lot of the elements being thrown into these waste bins. The initiative was about reducing overall landfill form waste from Center County, from State College, University Park, and yeah, the Mobius stations were everywhere, and they come in different sizes and different categories. As you can see, they're a little different. So for a lot of the tags I came up with were amenities, and they're still in the works of being validated from other Slack members. That was where I went to get my validation for, like, Chad and I and Adele. She would advise me to use Slack and to get in the community to help out, and or to find help about tagging and research tagging. On the left are tags that I found online and on wikis, and then on the right were proposed tags by me. A couple of them, like land compost, amenity dumpster, and garbage trucks, those are, I'm still waiting to hear back from people, so that's kind of a work in progress. And for the trash life cycle at Penn State, I had to talk to some of the field members and some of the people who, like, some of the custodian managers. They told me that Sustainable Communities Collaborative, is the SCC, was a project that was held by a panel of researchers, faculty members, and student representatives, and they wanted to get the community, to the school community, the residents, and neighboring counties to get together collectively to help lower the trash and promote reusing recyclables. So they started in 2013, and they started off with about 5 projects. Each project has a written statement at the end for the conclusion. And I found out that the solid waste since 2015 produced just in state college was about 74,000 tons, or 1,500 per year. And because of the Mobius waste management stations, a lot of that waste was diverted from landfills, and which is about almost 10,000 tons per year, which was about 62% of the waste stream. Project and program impacts are always evaluated through post-project faculty, students, and community partner administrators, so they can get through the confinements, and it's a very formal process. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Michael. I'll start off with a question. So could you talk a little bit about the next steps going from here? Like, what is the process of actually proposing tags, new tags for OSM?
So after the proposed tags get validated, I go into OpenStreetMap, and basically I did a lot of field work in my area in my college area at Penn State. So the Burroughs Road, I go on OSM, go to the amenities, or go to the tags and tag the amenities and the missing trash sites proposed within the university.
Great. Are there questions for Michael?
I got a quick one. Were you similar to Michael's question from the previous presentation? Were you surprised about how many different options there were to tag these different amenities? Like it seemed like there's a lot of different ways to tag a trash can.
Yeah, yeah. And not only was I surprised at the amount of options that there were to tag a trash can, was the amount of tags that were already tagged in the like the Department of Geography building. It had doors tagged and like elevators tagged, but not the Mobius bins, like not track like water fountains and waste management wouldn't be tagged. So I had to go back, and once I get these validated, then I can sort them out in OSM and apply them to the correct site or building which I found them at.
Thank you.
Hi, Michael. This might be more looking for your opinion on something. It's really neat how you and others in OSM community go into Slack and kind of negotiate, new tags as an option and get feedback from the broader community. How do you wind up with an agreement on how to consistently map these features moving forward within those Slack communications and others? Was there anyone saying, okay, it's now final, we're set, move forward with this? Or do you feel like it's still a little ambiguous on how to move forward?
Well, I always try to provide a little bit of visual feedback. So I'll snap a picture of what I'm asking how it should be tagged, and there's a thread of like 5 people telling me this is how they would tag it, and then usually if it's in the same like waste bin or container or recticle, um that's when it gets iffy. Like for me, I wouldn't know when you would decide if you want it to be a bin or a container or a box, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Nice work. We got to go.
Yeah, well, thanks, Chad.
Take care, Michael. Happy holiday, everyone.
Thanks, Chad. Any other questions for Michael? Okay, I have one last question. Michael, I'm wondering, were you able to work with the YouthMappers chapter at Penn State on any part of this project, or do you plan to work with them in the future?
There was really no need for me to reach out to them because they're more GIS, and I wasn't plotting anything that I didn't know how to already in OSM.
Cool, makes sense. Okay, let's move on to the next intern. So next we'll be hearing from Dina Onish from Vassar, my alma mater, and she'll be presenting On the Road Again using Rapid ID for YouthMappers tasks in Madagascar, and her mentor was Christine. Take it away, Dina.
Hi, I'm just going to share my screen. Can you guys see my slides?
Yep,
Yeah.
they're loading. Yep.
Okay. All right, great. Yes, this is Adele and Rory's very creative, cute title, Operation on the Road Again, using Rapid ID for YouthMappers tasks in Madagascar. So last semester, I took a cognitive science class and was learning a lot about the theory behind machine learning and teachable machines. And then at the beginning of COVID, I read an article about the use of Rapid ID to map areas in Cusco in response to COVID outbreaks and tracking where people live because census can't keep up with it, and how they're able to really very quickly identify data that was changing really quickly. And so like I'm interested in Rapid ID. And so it's always been a curiosity of mine to learn more about it. And so Rory and Adele put together a project for me where I could explore learning more about Rapid ID in the context of like OpenStreetMap and humanitarian mapping. So the USA Geo Center is working on a project to get foundational geographic road data for these 7 districts in Madagascar of various scales and sizes. You can see one of them is really tiny compared to really large districts in Madagascar. And so I set up tasks within Teach OSM. And so I imported each district as a GeoJSON into Teach OSM and set the grid, and then I used custom editor to add Rapid ID as the editor for these tasks. And then I set up the tasks. So I added the descriptions for the tasks and introduced how to use Rapid ID within the tasks and outlined how to tag the areas specific for these districts using information from the Highway Tag Africa, Madagascar tagging guidelines for WikiOSM, and also the Madagascar Road Authority and the Transportation Ministries in Madagascar. And then I'm collaborating. This is like an ongoing project that I'll be collaborating with Hudson Valley Mappers, which is the YouthMappers chapter based at my school, Vassar College, which Adele was the one who helped set up Hudson Valley Mappers. And so after break, I'll be working with them to teach them how to use Rapid ID for this project. And they'll be helping me map all the districts for this task. And that's it. Hold on, now I'm trying to figure out how to unshare.
Cool. Thank you so much, Dina. This project is a great help to the USA Geo Center, and I'm also really excited to hear that you'll be collaborating with Hudson Valley Mappers. Any questions from the Geo Center for Dina?
I got a quick question. Maybe it'd be helpful to talk a little bit about Rapid ID to maybe some people who aren't as familiar with it. About so it uses machine learning, but can you talk a little bit how it helps mappers instead of it just kind of being replacing mappers, maybe?
Yeah, there's it doesn't replace any of the tasks that mappers would usually do in OSM. It is a tool that predicts where roads and sometimes buildings, depending on what Rapid ID you're using, where they would be. And so it makes it really easy for mappers to identify and load those predictions into what they would use to edit. And so they then use those predictions to edit and upload. But it doesn't replace the human element. So it still puts local expertise at the forefront and is really important for speeding up mapping, especially for local mappers with very limited connectivity. And so it makes the manual part of mapping more fast, but it doesn't replace the manual parts of mapping.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions for Dina? Could you talk a little bit about what your experience working with the Teach OSM interface was like? Was it easy to figure out for the most part?
Yeah, I guess it is a little bit less advanced than humanitarian OpenStreetMap team and that tasking manager, but it was really easy to use, and I used Markdown to create links to videos for tutorials on how to use Rapid ID when they're in the task. But it was a really easy platform to use, and it's what Hudson Valley Mappers is going to be using when they do some of the mapping in Madagascar.
And sorry, this is a little bit wonky for maybe some of the GeoCenter non-OSM folks, but you were able to get was how did you figure out to get the custom editor in there?
So you have to add you add Rapid ID manually by if you set your profile to like an advanced setting, then you have the option to add the custom editor. And so you can add that in by putting in there's a custom editor tab, and then you just put in Rapid ID is what you would like to call it, and then you put in the link provided by Map with AI, which is the name of the project of that created the tool for Rapid ID, which is by Facebook, and then they have a custom link that you add in, and then that is what the Teach OSM learned how to use to add in the custom ID editor.
Thanks, you're teaching me stuff. I didn't know how to do that, so thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Dina. Okay, so we'll move on to our final presentation of the day. So Amy McKinnon from GW will be presenting on Operation Validation, JOSM Validation Training, and her mentor was Juliana. So thank you very much, Juliana, for mentoring her. All right, take it away, Amy.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, can you see like my whole screen or just the slides?
We see the whole screen right now.
Okay, good. I'm gonna like go back and forth. Okay, so yeah, my project, oh, it's loading. Okay, yeah, my project was about creating a JOSM validation training using the YouthMappers validation training documents. So yeah, I'll just go through first what validation is, and then why we decided to do this project and kind of simplify the document into slides. And then how I did the recording, and we also collaborated with a YouthMappers chapter in Panama. So yeah, that's the organization of this. So first, just what is validation? We'll first mention the YouthMappers Validation Hub, which is where I work, and so does Noel and 3 other students. And then Richard Hinton is our supervisor. So that's the website in case anyone wants to check it out. There's a lot more information on there. But basically, we're in charge of going back to older projects for YouthMappers and just verifying the quality of the data which users have contributed to OSM. And obviously, it's an open source platform, so anyone can add to it. So that's what we're doing, is just looking back and making sure that everything looks correct and that everything is tagged correctly. So our 3 goals are spatial accuracy, which has a lot to do with just the imagery and where things are located. Tagging accuracy, which is just that buildings are tagged as buildings and roads are tagged as the correct type of road. And then completeness, which is kind of self-explanatory, just is everything mapped, because we can also send it back if not everything is mapped in the square. So that's just a little background on what the validation process is. So this is the workflow that I used to create the training. This is from the YouthMappers document, but also just from like my personal experience validating and the process that I usually go through. So I'm going to switch now just to the actual slide deck that I created. So this is what it looks like. It's really not meant to be like a presentation to go through. It's more of like, we will send out this link to people and they can kind of go through it themselves. So this is like pretty much the same slide that I just showed you guys, but it's pretty much just a more digestible version of this document, which is what I went off of. And this is what we use for our training at the hub, but I think it's a little bit intimidating to look at initially just because it's pretty wordy and there aren't a lot of pictures. So that's why we had the idea of creating this so that you can go through and just kind of more easily find everything. And I added some pictures, and then there's notes here too, and just some common issues that you would find. I think that this is a little bit more detailed, but this is probably less intimidating for people who are like just starting out and just want to learn the basics of validation. So that was the goal behind this. We'll go back into this one. Okay, so then the next thing that I did was I collaborated with Maria Fernanda, she's a regional ambassador in Colombia for YouthMappers, and she right now is translating that whole presentation to Spanish. And she's going to do, actually it's tomorrow, so I can't really report back on like how that went, but tomorrow she's having a validation training for a chapter in Panama, and they're working on 3 tasks. This is one of them, and you can see that it's not completed yet, but a lot of it is ready for validation. So we're hoping to train them, and then they'll be able to like go through and completely finish all of these tasks. Okay, and then this is the last part. So I used the slides here to record the training. Oops. Sorry, okay, here we go. And I just used Zoom and like recorded it pretty much like I'm doing now, like talking to myself through the camera, and then I edited it here and added some captions. So I have the link at the end if anyone wants to watch this later. It's only like 20 minutes long. And then here's some links for the website and the validation training doc as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. These are all super helpful resources for mappers, and I'm happy to hear about your work with Maria Fernanda in Colombia supporting the Panama chapter. Are there any questions for Amy about her project?
Hi, Amy. I was just curious, when you were doing this work and really looking at validation as part of the OSM community, are there other equivalent validation hubs out there that you're seeing, or is the validation hub that's being stood up through YouthMappers kind of paving the way in some respects?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like to my knowledge, that we're the only, I mean, we're definitely the only like validation hub, and we're the first ones. I think Richard worked a lot on it to create it, and me and Noel are part of like the second group, I guess, to go through everything. But the year before, in 2019, is when they created all this documentation. So it's pretty new. But yeah, we're the only ones who are like employed by YouthMappers to do the validation. But we're hoping to use some of this material to train more validators. That way, yeah, we can get more people on board, because there's a lot of work to be done, and like we're still validating projects from like 2 years ago. So yeah, we have a lot to go through still.
And this, to you again, Amy, or anyone else, and Rory, Adele, I know there's strong interest in validation, which makes sense, but there doesn't seem like there's a lot of institutional initiatives to really do so in an organized format. But I don't know the OSM community very well to say for sure. Are you guys, as you're going through this process and at GW, are you seeing, you collecting data? Are you seeing evidence to show that like 95% of the edits are in good shape, but those 5% that we have to make are really important to kind of demonstrate to the broader OSM community where validation needs to go in an organized fashion moving forward?
Yeah, we don't necessarily collect that sort of data. That's a good idea though, just to like see kind of what we all experience while validating. But at least for me, it's like usually the edits are mostly correct, and it's just a matter of fixing a few small things, so it doesn't take too long. But it's still pretty time consuming just to go through each one. So I guess, yeah, if there were a way to speed that up somehow, or maybe like incorporate map with AI or something, I could see that happening. But yeah, as of now, I don't think there's really anything that tracks that like within us doing it.
One of the really nice things that the hub does at GW is doesn't only fix the errors, but it provides feedback to the YouthMappers who are doing the edits. And so, it takes more time, of course, and slows down the process. And it would be a lot easier just to fix all the errors and move on. But, since we are, as the tagline says, building mappers and not just a map. They do take the time to provide that feedback and help in a positive, constructive way that helps the editors learn from their mistakes and improve, which I think is pretty rare within the OSM community. I know like the humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, they have a validation process, and a couple other groups do as well. But it's really nice to see that YouthMappers takes the time to help train and grow the chapter skills through the validation process as well.
Yeah, thanks, Rory, Amy. I totally get like validation doesn't always seem like the most fun part of it, but it also seems like potentially it offers the most value towards the existence of this program moving forward. So that's really good to hear. Thanks.
Yeah, and we always hope that mappers like read our feedback, and it's kind of like some positive reinforcement, but then they also see that we said like, oh, make sure you square all your buildings, or make sure you use the right imagery and stuff like that. So they come back and also hopefully make better edits. So we have less work to do, hopefully.
Any other questions for Amy? Cool. Well, we have 10 minutes left for a kind of general group Q&A. And thank you again, Amy, for presenting, and for Juliana for mentoring her. So I'm going to ask a question to the group, to the interns first, and then GeoCenter folks are welcome to jump in with additional questions. So I'd like to ask our interns to just talk generally about their experience participating in the internship and completing the final project. What were your favorite parts of the internship and the final project? And what was it like doing all of this in a primarily or completely virtual semester setting? Let's see, Dina, would you like to start?
Yeah, definitely. I was just thinking about how much I liked during the internship, getting to learn a bunch of the different, I'd only really used a hot tasking manager before, and so it was really fun learning how to use map roulette and field maps. And the internship put a lot of focus on hearing from people from all different areas of the Geo Center and YouthMappers, and everyone has a lot of very disparate experiences, so it was really interesting to hear about how different everyone's work is and all kind of coalesces really nicely. Yeah.
Cool. And Noelle, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely the same as Dina. I really enjoyed hearing from all these different people from USAID and YouthMappers and the Geo Center, and just hearing about what they do. And then also my final project was one of my favorite parts of it, because it really allowed me to kind of get a lot of experience I hadn't had prior, and really get in, figure stuff out on my own with some guidance along the way, but just really get in there and use all the resources on the internet to figure out how to use Overpass Turbo, figure out how to do all this different stuff. There are so many resources out there for open source stuff. It was just so that was really, really great to me. And then for just being completely remote, it was a nice face-to-face interaction that I don't have in classes. None of my classes have video on. They all tell you to turn it off. So it was just cool to still have interaction with actual people once a week. Yeah.
Cool. Happy to hear that. Michael, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I was gonna say, with the whole different kind of semester feeling, the remote internship just really flowed through with everything else pretty smoothly. So it was nice to be able to get together once a week, get the assignments done. I've never this was a way for me to expose myself to more than just OSM, and get involved and learn more with Hot, Task Manager, Rapid, and also the guest speakers we had and everyone here. It's a great way to network and meet new people in the field.
Great, thank you. Amy?
Yeah, I second that from Michael, just like meeting everyone who we have throughout the past few weeks and just seeing what different people's goals were in a similar field, studying GIS, geography, international development in that realm, just because I'm not totally sure what I want to do. So this was helpful to see that everyone has different paths to get here. And yeah, the virtual, it did kind of just flow into the usual semester, but it was also good to have like face-to-face interaction and also just a different like set of contacts outside of my normal school work and classes. So yeah, it worked out well.
Awesome.
I
Would
also want to
anyone-
mention,
oh, go ahead.
like since like when I first like had an assignment in one of my classes last semester, like on OSM, like I had no idea, like that was the first time I used it, and now I've seen like how big the community is and how tight everyone is. Like everyone seems to like know each other, like mentioning Chad and all that. So I think that's really cool and like that's a good feeling.
I would also add that I'm a sophomore, so when I started this internship, I was thinking about a lot of different programs that I'd maybe want to major in, and I'll be declaring my geography major in the next couple of weeks, which is exciting. And this internship helped me think about, yeah, like how much I like geography and how much more I want to do with it. So that was great.
Congrats, that's awesome. Any other questions for the interns?
I have a quick question kind of along the lines that you all are getting to is how this internship changed what you want to do in the classroom, the projects you want to do or things like that. If you could speak to that, you all speak to it a little bit, but that's what I was thinking about as you were going through. So, and great job to everyone.
Noelle, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I can start. So I, going in, knew I wanted to do GIS and knew I wanted to like work in GIS in the future. Even though I am engineering, I knew I wanted to go like more with like my minor coursework. So this just like really reinforced that for me, especially having Kevin as a mentor who like does remote sensing. Like that's definitely now I know I want to take more courses in remote sensing so that I can like really get into that and like focus more on that instead of like the broader GIS scope that I was looking at before this internship, just like not really knowing entirely what my path would be like when I specialized.
Cool, that's great. Amy, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I guess it also just showed how much GIS and international development overlap, which obviously that's like the whole point of the Geo Center, but it was cool to get to see like all the different projects going on and how I could apply that to my coursework. And yeah, I'm taking some classes next semester on GIS and one called Cities in the Developing World. So I definitely started to kind of gear my coursework more towards the intersection of those two things.
Michael?
Yeah, this made me realize that there's always going to be a need for mappers and in any sort of department that means, you know, like a lot of jobs can be taken over by robots or machine orientated, but there's like you're not going to get any better data or information from someone living in a local area and like locally mapping because they're going to know what's important and what's not.
That's very true. Dina, do you want to go?
Yeah, I mentioned this already, but it was really interesting for me to see how my like this what I learned in my cognitive science classes had come into play into the stuff that I had learned in geography, but it wasn't until I was doing a lot of research on Rapid ID that I saw it all come to play. And it was so much fun to like look at Facebook's the stuff they had published about how they trained their machine, and it was exactly this type of stuff I'd been doing in my cognitive science classes, and it was really fun to have that in a geography setting. Just like the multidisciplinary, the way things overlap was exciting to see.
Thanks to all four of you for sharing such insightful reflections. We just have a couple minutes left. I wanted to note that in the chat, Kevin asked for the link to Amy's training video. So Amy, would you be able to drop that in the next minute or so?
Yeah, I think that anyone with the link can view it, but I'll double check.
Okay, great. Well, I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with the four of you this fall and getting to know you. I had a really wonderful time helping lead the program, and I'll pass it over to Rory to say some closing remarks.
No, just echoing Adele, you guys were awesome. You guys showed up on time and to all the trainings, so that's like amazing just on that note. And you put up with all the wacky icebreakers I'd come up with for the week, so I also appreciate that. And you guys all had creative answers, and you guys were definitely a guinea pig for, like, this is the first time Adele and I kind of led an internship program at USAID, and we kind of experimented differently with the format of it. So having the final projects was very new. So yeah, thanks for being good sports and being flexible along the way. We'll be sending out a follow-up email because we are going to ask for those 2 paragraphs that we mentioned about your final project and your overall experience for a YouthMappers blog post. And we'll be also sending a link to a survey to provide anonymous feedback on the program, so you don't just have to say nice things in front of our bosses on there. So please be honest and give us all the feedback that you would like to share, and stay in touch. You'll have our emails, and we'd love to just hear about your lives and careers as you guys progress through school. And don't hesitate to reach out if you're ever looking for advice or to chat.
And I just want to give a final shout out to Ryan, who signed up as a project mentor and did mentor an intern who unfortunately had to drop out of the program due to visa issues. But Ryan was super supportive and helpful for the first few weeks of the final project. So thanks, Ryan. Great. Cool. Well, thank you so much for attending the presentations, everyone. And thank you to our interns for presenting.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, all.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
Adele.
Thank you, everybody. Good work.
Take care.
Great job.
Yeah.
Great job.